When most people imagine a saloon in the Wild West, they picture swinging doors, a piano playing in the background, cowboys laughing with their drinks, and perhaps a few rowdy poker games. Movies, TV shows, and popular culture have romanticized these establishments for over a century. But the truth is far from the glamorous scenes we see on screen. Historical records, traveler journals, and archival documents reveal a much grittier, dirtier, and sometimes downright dangerous reality. The Wild West saloons were not just bars, they were centers of vice, disease, and chaos hidden behind a thin veneer of entertainment. From the dusty towns of Arizona to the bustling frontier cities of Texas, saloons were everywhere. They served as social hubs, but they were far from clean. Floors were rarely swept properly, and spilled whiskey, beer, and mud created a sticky, smelly mess that lingered for days. Patrons frequently spat tobacco on the floors, which were rarely cleaned. Imagine walking into a place where every step could land you in a puddle of something unidentifiable, where your boots would pick up a layer of grime just by standing still. It's not the romanticized Western you've seen in films, it's closer to walking into a bacterial minefield. Sanitation was not a priority, and water was often scarce or contaminated. Glasses and mugs were rinsed in the same water all day, and utensils were shared with little care. Outbreaks of diseases such as dysentery, cholera, and typhoid were common, yet the townsfolk had few alternatives for entertainment. The saloon became both a place of social gathering and a hotspot for illness. In many frontier towns, doctors were rare, and medical treatment was rudimentary at best. A simple cut from a bar fight or a scratch on a shared chair could lead to infection and, in the worst cases, death. Violence was another constant feature of these saloons. Fights broke out over gambling debts, insults, or even just drunken misunderstandings. The infamous gunfight at the OK Corral is often cited as an iconic moment in Wild West history, but countless smaller brawls and shootings occurred daily in saloons across the frontier. Barroom brawls were a fact of life, and saloon owners often tolerated the chaos as long as customers kept spending money. There were even cases where bodies would lie in the corner of a saloon for hours before being removed. Women, too, played a complicated role in these establishments. While some saloons had hostesses or entertainers, the reality was often grim. Many women who worked in saloons were involved in prostitution, sometimes by choice, often by necessity. Records show that diseases spread quickly among workers and patrons alike, and access to healthcare was limited. The saloon could be a dangerous environment for anyone, but especially for women and children who might have accompanied their parents. Alcohol consumption was extreme. Whiskey and beer flowed freely, often with little concern for moderation. Intoxicated patrons were prone to violent behavior, theft, and other criminal acts. Police or law enforcement presence in these towns was limited, meaning that much of the chaos went unchecked. Stories from historical accounts tell of entire saloons being trashed during a single night of drunken revelry, with furniture destroyed, windows broken, and fights spilling into the streets. Despite all of this, saloons were central to frontier life. They served as places for news, networking, and business transactions. Cattle deals, mining claims, and political discussions often took place over a shot of whiskey. For many men traveling through these harsh landscapes, the saloon was one of the few places to find human connection. Yet, beneath the surface, it was a dangerous and unsanitary environment. The romanticized notion of the Wild West saloon is a product of myth-making, Hollywood scripts, and selective memory. The reality was much harsher and often deadly. Interestingly, some saloons attempted to maintain cleanliness, or at least order. A few had makeshift cleaning routines, like sweeping the floors or emptying spittoons. But such practices were the exception, not the rule. In most towns, the saloon's chaos mirrored the lawlessness of the frontier itself. Disease, violence, and vice were just as much a part of daily life as the gold rush or cattle drives. Furthermore, saloons were hubs for illegal activities. Gambling was rampant, often unregulated and sometimes outright cheating. Card sharks thrived in the disorder, and many patrons lost their life savings in a single evening. Bootlegging, smuggling, and fencing stolen goods were common. Towns with larger populations sometimes attempted to regulate these establishments, but enforcement was often lax. The Wild West was, In many ways, a testing ground for both American entrepreneurship and lawlessness. The architecture of saloons also contributed to their grim conditions. Wooden floors, walls, and ceilings absorbed smoke, dust, and filth over time. Windows often remained open to allow ventilation, but dust storms in the plains made little difference. The combination of alcohol, tobacco, dirt, and human activity created an almost unbearable stench. Imagine a place that is simultaneously smoky, sticky, and foul, yet brimming with laughter, music, and conversation. That was the paradox of the Wild West saloon. In modern times, historical reenactments and themed bars often sanitize this history. They emphasize the swinging doors, the piano music, and the charm of cowboys and outlaws. But historical evidence suggests that the reality was much less glamorous. Patrons were at risk of illness, injury, and financial ruin, all while seeking entertainment and social connection. The Wild West Saloon was not just a bar, it was a microcosm of frontier life, embodying the risks, freedoms, and dangers of the time. Ultimately, understanding the truth about saloons offers a window into American history. It reminds us that daily life on the frontier was far from the romanticized version we often see. These establishments were messy, unsafe, and sometimes lethal, but they were also central to the social and economic fabric of frontier towns. They reveal how people coped with isolation, hardship, and the constant struggle for survival. The image of the Wild West Saloon may be polished in films and novels, but the historical record tells a story that is far dirtier, far more dangerous, and far more fascinating than fiction could ever capture. By examining saloons through the lens of history, we gain insight into human resilience and the harsh realities of frontier life. The next time you watch a cowboy step into a swinging door and order a whiskey, remember, behind that door might have been spilled drinks, disease, a brawl in progress, and a room filled with the dust and grime of an unforgiving land. The Wild West was not just a land of opportunity, it was a land of survival, and its saloons were the beating heart of that survival.